Hi, John.
Hey, Alex.
Do you know what I hate?
What do you hate?
Portland.
Really? Why is that?
I mean, you live here, right?
Yes, still.
Yeah, so that's my answer.
No, I got you.
It's hellscape. Dystopian bullshit. As featured.
I will say this. I am glad it's not that Portland of a movie.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't really try to bank on a lot of like, oh, is it Portland weird? Or it's, oh, look, there's the Unipiper or whatever bullshit. It's just like, yeah, there's a food scene in Portland and it's by some woods. There you go. I think that's it.
No, it's very not Portland-y, which I liked. And I shouldn't say I hate Portland. I am only saying that because that's how we have to open every show.
Right.
But I'm not saying it annoyed me that it was set here, but like it was fun to see the city I live in some shots. But I watched movies to get away from living in Portland,
right.
not be reminded. You know, it was like when I grew up on the East Coast, as you know, but the audience, I probably haven't said it 15 times recently. So you get used to like, you know, every single movie is set in New York, where you're like, you don't even think about it. You don't see Portland in movies that often, so it was like really odd.
It took some getting used to, and I think some of it was just like my hackles were raised that it was going to get really annoying in that regard, and it didn't, fortunately. I was also expecting, and there was like maybe one instance of this, and I've told the story on the podcast before, but when I saw About Schmidt, which takes place in Omaha, the biggest laugh the movie got is there's a part where like Jack Nicholson is like on one side of town, turns a corner, he's on the other side of town. Just the way that movie geography works.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone in the audience was like, whoa, what? This is, I don't know. Someone should have gotten fired for that.
Yeah.
And so I was waiting for some of that. And there's a little bit, the tavern they go to is not as remote as they want to make it seem. But beyond that, it was fine.
The tavern, like the one they go to at the end and the beginning?
At the beginning, yeah. It doesn't really exist anymore. It's the Skyline Tavern, which is up in the West Hills. It's
okay.
It's an easy, it's a spot a lot of people that are like riding in Forest Park and in that area stop at. Cyclists.
Yeah, I've heard about that place. I didn't realize
I completely bonked on a ride, like just hit a wall and had to like hang out there for a bit to like get my shit together. Yeah.
The other geographical thing that threw me, and not the other, because that one threw you and I didn't know, is when he goes to Amir's dad's house, they have a conversation outside and you can see Mount Hood, but before Mount Hood, there's a mountain range. So where the fuck are they? I couldn't like do that in my head. Are we on the other side of the West Hills? So we're seeing
I think they're still in Northwest somewhere. I don't know. Hazel, my partner kind of knew where they were. Just they were.
I couldn't just figure out where that line of trees before Mount Hood was, though.
I mean,
it seemed like there was.
I mean, because Mount Hood is the other direction. Because
it's east.
East. So I don't know. Rocky Butte, something. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But I mean, again, it was thrown because I live here. It's just like, I mean, dope neighborhood. That house is awesome. But I was like, where the fuck is that? Because it seems like it should be, you know, it's super rich. So like you think, oh, it's in the West Hills.
Yeah.
But then there's like this mountains. I'm like, those don't exist. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But it threw me enough that that's all I thought about the entire movie. All of my notes, 2 pages of where the fuck is this place? So rarely, maybe never have I done this on the show. John, I want to tell you what I thought this movie was going to be. I knew nothing about it other than that it's a pig. And I thought that he may have been a chef. But that's it. I thought this was going to be American The Protector with Tony Jaa.
Okay, yeah.
See, I thought, you know, like he gets his elephant stolen and then he goes on like a rampage to get his elephant back.
Right.
I think that's The Protector. Either way, the Tony Jaa movie with the stolen elephant.
There's like 3 that have that plot.
Exactly. That's why I don't remember which one. It's Ong Bak, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
The point is, I thought this was going to be a Nicolas Cage, him being wacky, beating the shit out of people. Like that one movie where he keeps having sex while being shot at and drinking Jack Daniels.
Drive Angry.
Yes. I thought this was going to be a, not that lowbrow, but like I thought this was going to be like a slightly more artsy version of that. And just going to him going on a murder spree trying to get his pig back. And man, I've rarely been as wrong about a movie.
Yeah, I wasn't
holy fuck.
Quite there. I mean, that was my, you know, you hear the story like Nicolas Cage, his pig is missing. He's going to go get it back. Like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be some nonsense. But then you start hearing, you know, stuff pouring out about people talking about how amazing his performance is and all that stuff. So you start going, well, it's probably not that. Like I was thinking maybe it'd be something almost like, as far as revenge goes, something almost like Unforgiven, where it's just a much more stoic kind of thing. Thus, this kind of ball-to-wall thing. I was not expecting what this movie was. And I think that's good. I don't know what, there's a ton of different ways that this movie could have gone. And I'm pretty glad about the route that it chose. It's not 100%, but it's dang good.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty terrific film, especially given the, you know, it's a minuscule budget movie. Well, not minuscule, but it's a pretty small budget movie. And I mean, it looks like it doesn't cost much, but I mean, not in like a bad way. Like it's a nice looking movie, but it's I think you did about not you because John, you made this movie, so John, I think you did just about as well.
Thank you.
As could be expected.
Yes,
with
Nick was a delight to work with. The pig, you're going to see a lot of that pig. That pig is very adorable, though. I will say that is a cute pig.
Really?
I thought it was cute. It had little fluffy cheek stuff. It's cute. I'm not normally a big pig guy, but thought that one was cute.
Yeah, it looks arrogant.
Yeah, fair enough.
Showing off all of its fucking truffle finding ability. And I'm guilty of doing this as a writer, and I feel bad about it now because I just realized how pervasive it is. But and we talked about it on the show before. I would love one movie where there's a guy that has emotions and they're not based on the fact his wife is dead. It's the only emotion we're allowed to have. And it is so fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Because one, I haven't even gotten married yet, let alone had her die on me. to
Where's my
get to
piece
feel
of the
an
pie?
emotion. Yeah, when do I get to feel something? But man, holy fucking overdone. Like the whole time I was hoping it was his fault and she's actually alive somewhere. And it's just like, oh no, he burned the relationship down and he's a complete fucking mess for it. And like when he starts getting back into the city, there's going to be he visits her house or something where it's just like, look, I know you don't want to see me.
Yeah.
I need the champagne fluke or whatever. No, this is a fucking another dead lady. Jesus, fuck.
Yeah. There's no shortage of those in cinema and as motivating factors for people.
You think he ate her?
I don't. I don't actually think he ate her.
All right.
The pig might have.
You think the pig ate her?
Yes.
So while we're on the topic of every movie being based around dead wives, this has nothing to do with that. So his wife dies. He's a famous chef in Portland. He's like this amazing fucking guy. He ends up living in a shack somewhere remote of Portland, but Portland adjacent, being a truffle hunter. What do you think the like first steps of that were? Because at some point you have to like buy that shack. You have to get that property. Like, how do you like, it's always this romantic thing of like, oh, I gave up everything. All my emotions are dead. My wife's dead. So I'm just going to go off grid and live somewhere. But like, you still need to like pay for that. Like you still need to find that. But like, how does the next day work? How does 2 weeks from then
Well,
work?
I mean, he was clearly doing pretty well for himself. The way that they make him sound, his legend in Portland and stuff like that. So my guess is he had the shack first. Yes, you can pay someone to get your truffles, but it might just be fun to like, I'm going to spend the weekend truffle hunting. And he seems to be pretty good at it. And, but then, maybe he was like, I'm just going to do this now. How that ended up getting into the deal with Amir and like how he's selling those, don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait for the Netflix original series. That's the prequel, Pig Origins.
They're all going to be done by the Jim Henson Company. Could be a very Dark Crystal.
I would watch that. If it was a puppet pig and a puppet Nick Cage, I would totally.
I mean, a puppet Nick Cage would be kind of fantastic, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
it must have happened. All right, well, I'm gonna have to Google that now. Sorry, audience.
You're probably gonna find like stuff to buy.
The only thing that shows up is that Five Nights at Freddy's ripoff thing he was in.
Oh, right, yeah, Willy's Wonka Land or whatever.
Yeah. Holy shit! So maybe we should talk to. Let's see if we can't get in touch with
patent pending, copyright.
Yeah, we mailed this podcast to ourselves, so you're not allowed to make this movie.
Yeah.
All right, so this was filmed in Portland. John, I need you to start asking around if anybody you know worked on this movie.
I do.
We're gonna have to get in touch with them
on this movie.
What's that?
I do know people that worked on this movie.
Okay, cool. Get in touch with them. We're gonna basically the end of this. Start the chain. We need to get in touch with Nicolas Cage. Because I need to pitch him the Anomalisa, but with Nicolas Cage that I have in mind.
Well, they always say you want to get in contact with an actor. The first thing you do is talk to the boom operator on a film that they worked on, and blammo.
Well, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Nicholas.cage@gmail? Just hope?
Yeah.
We should try that, actually.
It's
hey,
just
man, what's up? I was just
like,
seeing if you're the actual Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I have nothing to sell you or like pitch you on. We're trying to see if we could guess your email address.
Just find him on LinkedIn. Everyone's on LinkedIn.
Would you like to buy this Tyrannosaurus off of me?
Look, I got some sarcophagi I got to get rid of. No questions asked.
So what happens in the movie? Like, he's living up there. He's living
up there. He's truffle hunting with a pig. All you know about him is that he's this guy living in the forest. He's truffle hunting with this adorable pig.
And you know he's good at cooking.
That was another thing that I was so expecting this movie to be, is a lot of like food porn, basically. And there's, because at the beginning where the light is coming through the window of his cabin and he's making the crust for this pie or something. And it's very pretty. The same way that like occasionally In a lot of the more recent Tarantino movies, there'll just be occasionally some like really nice looking food. I remember specifically in Django Unchained when Christoph Waltz meets him and like he's pouring the beers and he uses a thing to wipe off the top of to push the foam off the top of the beer glass. And it was just like, man, that looks so good. I would like to have that beer right now. And there's really not a lot of it in this movie. But at this time there is, and you see him travel hunting with a pig. And then this guy played by Alex Wolff shows up. Fancy car.
Alex Wolff is like a Jaws all-star at this point.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what else he's been in Hereditary.
He was in Old.
He was in Old. Well, we haven't done Old yet.
I thought we did Old on the Patreon.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. I have not talked about Old.
Oh, did I just talk to you about it?
I think we just talked about it.
Oh, shit. I thought that was on the show.
No, we should do a Patreon about it, though. I would totally talk about Old and Mid-Sized.
Oh, that's
Sedan.
crazy. I could have sworn we did it.
No, I think we might have brought it up a little bit with Ted in the Happening episode that never happened.
Oh,
The
you know what? I
not-happening
think that's actually is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, boy, it was, what a discussion. You guys will never know. But anyway, he shows up. He's kind of fancy and he's delivers Nick Cage a bunch of food and supplies, and Nick Cage gives him the truffles. That's all we know about him until one night.
Yeah. Did you feel like Nicolas Cage was getting the raw end of that deal though? Because it didn't seem like he got much supplies for those truffles, and those things are fucking expensive.
Yeah, but it didn't. I got the sense he didn't care.
No, I got that, but I'm just like, come on, dude, why are you ripping off the hobo? Pardon me, son of the soil.
Thanks, Dr. David. But eventually, when he and the pig are sleeping, and one night this other car pulls up, and these two people get out, beat the shit out of him, and take his pig. Thus begins his quest.
Just to get the plot right, those two people that stole his pig were the burnouts we meet later.
Yes.
Okay. Were they stealing the pig on the orders of
Yes.
Mean Guy?
Yes.
Why?
Basically, for no other reason than to fuck with his son, it seemed like.
Okay, so he didn't care that he was getting good quality truffles. He just wanted to have his son not do well.
That's what I got out of it.
Okay.
That it wasn't just, I mean, some of it is also like that he's got his, as we find out later, Amir, who was the cool guy that we saw earlier. His dad, played by Adam Arkin, Darius, is like a big restaurant supply guy, and he has truffles and people. That's one of the things he sells to restaurants. But Amir has his restaurants he sells to, and Darius has restaurants he sells to, allegedly. But we find out that might not be the case. Which I do like the subtle joke of Adam Arkin playing that character, because did you ever watch Northern Exposure?
Yes.
When you were a kid? In Northern Exposure, Adam Arkin played a character named Adam, who was like a weirdo that lived in the woods, and turns out he's an amazing chef.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. And so I kind of got a big kick out of that, of him being the villain in this. In a way that, it doesn't matter. It's just a funny little like, oh, that's cute. Nice casting. I do like Adam Arkin in this. I like him in most things, but I always like when he plays menacing, because I think he does that pretty well.
Yeah, he does a good job in this one.
But yeah, so these tweakers come and take his pig. Pissed off, finally gets in touch with Amir.
They go to like a truffle market and they talk to a lady, and this is one of my favorite scenes in it, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with him being there. Amir, she's like, hey, I don't like sellers coming to where I farm. This is he's like, hey, there's a stolen pig. She's like, whoa, wait, what'd you say? Oh, hold up, everybody. Shut the fuck up, everyone. There's a pig missing. It's just like the frantic, like, oh, you've broken the number one taboo. All work must stop until this pig is rescued.
Well, I guess there's and it's mainly European, but there is a documentary, The Truffle Hunters, and there's a documentary about the people that do this. And more often than not, they use dogs, because mainly people would use pigs because I guess the truffles smell similar to the male pig's pheromones or something. But what happens a lot is the pigs fucking eat the truffles. Dogs don't do that. So generally,
did you say fuck and eat?
Fucking eat.
Okay, I normally wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But you just finished a sentence about it sounding like smelling like pheromones.
That's fair.
And I'm like, I think he said fucking eat, like just exemplifier, but
They're
that's
not
a
praying
much.
mantises.
Yeah, just like I don't know anything about pigs.
But apparently it can be a cutthroat thing where there's some of this shit goes down. But I do like that here there's this sort of unified, like, you don't fuck around with another person's pig.
Can you get truffles in Portland area? Is that like a thing?
You're asking the wrong guy. I have no idea. Sure.
I thought you were the truffle expert.
I am the truffle expert. For this podcast, I'm the truffle expert.
mean,
In that I have Google.
Yeah. I mean, you knew that pigs don't fuck truffles, so.
What's great is when I did the Google search, like the second thing down was Portland Truffle Mafia. That I'm sure people are like, is that real? Is that a real thing? There might be. I don't know. Yeah, apparently you can do some truffle foraging in the Willamette Valley.
Oh, I
But,
had no idea. I thought it was only like France or whatever.
But anyway, so it's these couple of tweakers, and they figure out who that is. So they go and the tweakers are like, "Oh no, man, we got rid of the pig. We didn't know what to do with the pig." No,
Yeah, we sold it to a city guy.
to a city guy. So then they like Nick Cage has to go back to the city, and that's a big deal.
When he's driving back into the city, you know what I was thinking? Who stole that pig?
Babe,
Antifa.
probably, yeah,
I mean, you know how they burned down all of Portland.
right.
They probably stole that pig.
and they burned it down.
Yeah, they burned down the pig after Portland.
Yeah, I do. I
Fucking
did
Antifa.
like, speaking of sort of local political stuff, the way that you find out that these tweakers stole the pig, but they did so at the behest of this rich asshole. Is that we just had an issue here. We have a bit of a houseless crisis going on in Portland, and there was a issue with catalytic converters being stolen, and they found that this ring of catalytic converters being stolen was run by a dude in Lake Oswego, which is like a nicer part, like suburb of Portland. And so, like, instead of like the crime is happening, these people are doing it, but the reason they're doing it is because a rich guy told them.
That's great.
And I kind of got a kick out of that. I mean, it's just an anecdote. I don't think the guy was trying to say anything with that in the movie, but anything like that in the movie. But just that parallel made me chuckle.
I think he was. I think he was trying to make a political statement that, you know, tweakers only obey the man, and that you know, people in the restaurant industry are only good as fighting cocks.
Yes, I do like when Nicolas Cage first starts his journey. He just starts walking. And he gets to this tavern, the Skyline Tavern we mentioned earlier, and he's like, he's looking for someone who hasn't worked there for like 10 years, like died 10 years ago, something like that. And he's like, "Can I use your phone? Are you going to order something?" "No." And she lets him use the phone anyway. I just like that little character moment of him. He's like, "I'm not going to bullshit you or anything. No, I'm not buying anything." And
Also, it's a good argument because do you want somebody looking like that in your restaurant?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're not going to stay here. Yes, of course you can use the phone. Just leave, whatever you need to get the fuck out of here as quick as possible.
he's haggard as shit. Amir has already made a comment about him like needing a camp shower, basically, like that he stinks. And so throughout this movie, I'm like, he's got to just smell so bad.
Awful.
And then people just kind of put up with it. Particularly when it's something that's so tied to food that people aren't like, "Could you leave?" He's just stanking up the joint.
Yeah, when they were in that fancy restaurant later, I was just like, I can't even imagine being the other people in there. Just how rank he must be.
Yeah. So knowing that like they have to go into the city to figure out what's going on here, he's like, "All right, so I'm gonna try to contact this friend of mine, this guy Edgar. Maybe he might know something." And so they go to this food cart pod, which again, like it's just a place he goes to. It's not like, "Oh, look at how weird Portland is. They have these food carts." It's just, "Oh, the guy's here." They go to this food cart thing, and the guy recognizes him, gives him a whole bunch of shit, basically about like, "You used to be somebody and now you're nothing." And he ends up, and this is really bizarre. They go to this underground chef fighting ring.
Yeah, so he said we have to go to the Hotel Portland, which Amir's like, that doesn't exist.
Yeah. It's
Turns
secretly
out
under
that-
Pioneer Square.
Yeah, they knocked down the Hotel Portland to build Pioneer Square Park, but they kept the substructure basement in which they have chef fighting.
Well, and it's like, but I do like that it's not chef fighting. It's what you do is you stand there, someone beats the shit out of you, and you just try to stay conscious.
I don't even understand okay. So we see an old guy getting the shit kicked out of him when we first show up. Who is that guy?
That is Kevin Michael Moore, local actor Kevin Michael Moore, great guy. But like he's supposed to be a restaurant service worker guy, like just a.
So it's just service workers that need extra money, so they volunteer to have other service workers beat the shit out of them.
Well, I think part of the idea is because a lot of the chefs I've met are insane. A lot of them, not all of them, and like masochists. And so masochist is when you like it when you're yeah. So it's just, I think it's just that. I think it's just, no, I can just put up with whatever. I'm tough as shit because I can just take all kinds of abuse, and I'm gonna put my body on the line to do that. It's very strange, and it felt a little bit like, the best way I can describe it is that years ago Anthony Bourdain came to talk. Like he was on a book tour or something, and he gave a talk, and you got the book and you got to go hear him talk. And like when he opened it up to Q&A, every other question was some dude with sleeve tattoos that stood up, slowly crossed his arm, and then like asked him a question about like, "Don't you hate Sarah Lee or something?" And then he would be like, "I guess, man, I don't care." But it just felt like it was for people that their idea of cooking is from the Food Network or something like that, where it's dudes with tattooed sleeves slowly crossing their arms and like, "I'm tough as shit. I drink Fernet Branca and Old Milwaukee." And I was worried it was going to lean into some of that shit, but it wasn't. Instead, it was this weird people enacting masochism on each other, or, you know, forcing.
Yeah, it still doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to be honest. And then the next aspect of it is Nicolas Cage just stands there and lets some guy beat the shit out of him, and that gets him the information he needs.
Well, I think because this is the first time that he drops his name. We only know him as Rob. Well, this is when he writes down that he's Robin Feld, and people are like, "Oh shit." So I think him showing up to the idea is that him showing up and doing that is not just like, oh my God, it's Robin Feld, but also that like he's lowering himself to that, because these all seemed like, you know, sous chefs in, like table people or something like that. Like, I don't know. It just felt like this, like, look, I'm coming back. I'm still one of you. Also almost like a initiation sort of thing, or, you know, reinitiation. But he does get some more information about where his pig might be. He ends up crashing with Amir, and I really like this next scene. And I didn't actually realize it was Alex Wolff until this scene, because he just looked way different. I don't know what it was. Maybe his hair was short or something. But where they're having breakfast in Amir's apartment, which is very nice, and Amir starts talking about how his parents' marriage sucked and his mom committed suicide. He says something like, with someone, you know, she's depressed, and with people like that, you just sort of like expect it to happen. And his character really starts to come into focus in this scene, because before we just get him driving this fancy car. He's kind of an asshole. He's listening. I like that he listens to classical music, but it's classical music explaining, with a voiceover explaining why you should like classical music.
It's really fun.
Like he's just pretending to be this person. And he's just like putting up this front. And so this was this kind of like approaching a real moment with him and actually becoming a human being. And that's when I really started to figure out, like, oh, this movie is not going to be Nicolas Cage fights people to get a pig. Like, this is the torment of the human soul.
Yeah, that is the moment. I mean, one, that he doesn't fight back during the underground thing. It's not like him gaining his strength back or anything. And then two is that breakfast sequence, which there's a few things that happen there. It's Amir telling the story of his mom is great. Amir not being good at cooking, and then didn't make a big deal out of it, which. Yeah. This is really the scene that made me go, oh, okay, I'm in safe hands with this movie. That they're not going to do the Nicolas Cage teaches him how to cook, or, you know, it's just it's just a throwaway line. It's fine. But then Nicolas Cage gives a nice little monologue about earthquake that's going to happen in Portland soon, and the tsunami that's going to make Portland flood again. And I don't really know why he went into it, but I liked it.
Yeah, I think it's just this. It's just, I mean, to just to be glib about it, just, you know, make every moment count, I guess. Or, you know, like that ultimately none of this stuff matters. So take what joy you can get.
Exactly. Smell every rose. Fuck every pig.
Yeah. Fucking eat every truffle. He asks him to use his connection. He asks Amir to use his connections to get reservations at, and I'm going to butcher this, so probably.
Eurydice.
Eurydice? All right, because I've been saying Eurydice. But I'm like, that can't
Eurydice.
be right.
It's a Greek lady.
Which is, yeah, but like that is very subtly applied, but I think is very perfect, because the whole thing with, say it again.
Eurydice.
Eurydice, all right. The whole thing with Eurydice.
I think that's how you say it. Is, now you got me questioning it, but like I'm pretty sure that's how you say it.
At least it sounds more pompous than how I'm saying it, so I think that's probably more correct. But Eurydice, in the myth of Orpheus goes down to Hades to save her after she dies, and the whole thing is like, okay, well, you could leave with her, but don't look back, because if you look back, she'll disappear, or, you know, she'll go away. And while they're trying to escape, he ends up doing that. It's almost like the Lot's wife in The Pillar of Salt, where it's the looking back destroys everything, and that's really what Nicolas Cage's journey is in this movie. I thought that was a nice little tell without being too obvious about it, because it also sounds like the name of a pretentious restaurant. So
yeah, you're correct. I couldn't remember what the myth was while watching it. I'm like, it's something to do with the underworld. I don't really remember. I'm like, is that the pomegranate seed lady? I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to keep watching the pig movie.
The only reason I know is because of a video game I played. That's the only reason I know that shit.
Was it Hades? The roguelike game of the year 2020?
Did you know they're making a sequel with a Hades 2, and it's got a female lead, but they're not calling it ladies?
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
They could have gotten the Beastie Boys to do the at least 2/3 of them.
But this is...
Well, I mean, it takes place in the underworld, so they could probably get all three.
I got a big kick out of the when they go to the restaurant, because you see, and I like this next scene as well, because you see Amir in his element, like he's delivering truffles or, you know, whatever to one of his restaurants that he's selling to. And he's really trying to lean on the guy like, hey, this restaurant's like the hottest thing, but can you know people, can you get me a lunch spot there? And you can see how kind of awkward he's being. Like for this front he's put on with Nick Cage, when he's actually confronted with one of these other like restaurateurs, he's not as self-confident, or as the front he puts on is. But they do eventually get the restaurant reservations, and they go in there. And it was...
Oh, wait, before we go into that, because that's a big scene, Nicolas Cage goes in the most throwaway of scenes. Before this, Nicolas Cage goes and visits his old house.
Oh, yeah.
And then sits on the back porch and plays a musical instrument with some random kid that lives there.
Yes.
And that's the whole scene.
Yeah.
It screams, boy, this movie was longer in the first cut. Because there must have been a reason for that.
Well, I think...
It's not in this movie.
I think that scene is there because he goes to what was his home. And surely someone else is living there now. And he like peeks around the backyard. I don't know why, but there's a small child there playing some weird instrument. And the kid's like, oh, you give it a try. And he does. And then Nicolas Cage, his face is completely bloody still, by the way. Like it's sutured up a little bit, but it's still bloody. He still looks like shit. But this kid is just... I think the kid eventually asks him if his face hurts. But Nick Cage is talking to him and says, like, hey, I used to live here. What happened to the persimmon tree? Kid's like, well, we don't have a persimmon tree. And Nicolas Cage, he's like, what's a persimmon? Nick Cage. I should refer to him as his character's name, but he's Nick Cage. He's like, well, persimmons, you can't eat them. They're terrible, but once they're ripe, they get rid of these things called tannins, and then they're good. And so it's basically just that the passage of time can heal things. I think it's, again, that kind of like looking backwards and moving forward sort of thing throughout the movie.
I think, yeah, that's fine. I get that. And that's what I took away from it as well. It's still a really fucking weird scene.
It's a weird scene. Like, I kept waiting for someone else to show up and be like, what are you doing here?
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, there should have been a mom coming out or like a something. It is it's just really fucking weird.
Or like the like Chef Boyardee lives there now. And he's like,
oh that'd be so good. Yeah. Or like out pops Papa John.
He's just sweaty and drunk. Hey,
that football quarterback he hangs out with is in the house.
Mm-hmm. But at this fancy ass restaurant, which was filmed in a place called Saucebox, which is also no longer in existence in Portland.
Is Saucebox gone?
Saucebox is gone.
Oh, I
permanently closed. But this is a fancy ass restaurant, and this whole scene is great. But I got a big kick out of it because at the beginning, when they get the dish that they're served, it's underneath a wine glass that's smoking underneath. And they open up the wine glass, and whatever's cooked in there is, it's like some quail egg, some deconstructed nonsense. But it got me thinking of when in the oral history of the Daily Show book, they talk about when Jon Stewart was hosting the Oscars, that was a very strained time on the show because they were, he pulled away a bunch of writers to go work on that. And they were also still having to do the show, and everyone was miserable, and the whole Oscar experience was miserable. And he tried to like soothe things over by taking everyone out to a very fancy dinner in LA. And, the tensions were high and everyone was happy to be there. And they got some kind of like shrimp or crawfish or something that was served under a smoking glass. And they all thought that was the dumbest thing ever. And there's a very funny picture of them sitting at this table, like all like in sweats, like looking at the camera, just like smiling awkwardly. And so that was the first thing I thought of, is like bullshit restaurant-y stuff.
Yeah, that molecular gastronomy shit like that.
Yeah.
It's
because there's some kind of blueberry foam that the thing is served on.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. And so, Nick Cage is like, well, I want to speak to the chef. The chef comes out, and it's this actor named David Nell, plays Chef Finway, who we discover when Nick Cage ends up dropping his name, because Nick Cage doesn't want to do it at first. He just kind of wants to get the information, and then finally, like Amir like drop his name. And as with everyone else that's familiar with Robin Feld, Chef Fenway like pulls up a chair and is like, oh my God, do you remember me? Nick Cage remembers him exactly. He was a prep cook at one of his restaurants that he fired after 2 months because he kept overcooking the pasta. And then he just gives this really fantastic speech, just breaking this guy down in a very...
Wait, you're saying he deconstructed him?
Yes.
Oh, because layers upon layers.
Yeah, because he starts talking about, like, what are you doing here? Like, what did you tell me the restaurant... We start to learn a little bit that Nick Cage, that Robin Feld has this photographic memory, basically. Because he's like, what did you tell me you wanted to do? What was your big dream? He was like, open a British pub. And he's like, why didn't you do that? Why are you doing this? This isn't real. These people aren't real. Who gives a shit? And the guy, like, I thought the actor that played him, the David Nell, like, really did that, like, charlatan confronted with his bullshit very well. That kind of like,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
a really-
awkward laughter and like almost tears, but not wanting to like admit to himself or to Nick Cage that Nick Cage is right.
Yeah, it's a really solid scene. That guy knocked out of the park. And I like the, I don't know, there's an aspect of like the mystical kind of man on the mountain about him now. Like he came down almost like a Buddha-like thing and he just saw through him and he's like, you know, you should be doing a British pub. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the kind of mystical nature of it, but they didn't overdo it. It's not like fucking Bagger Vance or something.
Right. No, but it's just this very simple thing. And you kind of get, it reveals a little bit about Nicolas Cage as well, because he's like, none of this shit, the critics don't matter. The critics aren't real. These people aren't real. This shit that you're making isn't real. We don't get a lot of things to love in this life. Like, hold on to it. And so just telling him, like, if you want to make this food, if you love British pub food, make that shit. Because, as he said, we don't get a lot of stuff to love in this world. And that deepens his, you know, the quest for the pig, but also sort of helps set up what's coming later. We should mention
also,
before, because we already brought up the dead wife, and we have an idea of who this is. But at the beginning, one of the care packages that he gets, part of the care package he gets from Amir is some batteries for his boombox, and he finds a tape that says "For Robin" on it, and he starts to play it a little bit. And it's a woman's voice, and he just can't bring himself to do it. Just figured I'd mention that because that comes into play later.
Yes, very much correct. Nicolas Cage steals a bike at some point. I don't remember why that happens. I like that part where he yells at the kid that catches him stealing his bike. He just goes, yeah, right in his face. I was like, hey, fine, I got a little Nick Cage in this.
Yeah. But I like at this moment too, because that's where he finds out basically that it was Darius, that it's Amir's dad that was responsible for the pig being taken. He loses his shit, kicks the crap out of Amir's car, steals the bike to go to confront Darius at his home. And then I like this moment too, because Amir goes, and you think he's like going to chase after Nicolas Cage, but what he does instead is goes to this care facility where his mom actually is on life support. And he's like giving this little like, he's having this conversation with her. You start to figure out that, oh, okay, well, clearly like his mom's alive, but then he's just standing outside the door talking like he can't go in and confront and see her in that state. You find out that he's, you know, hasn't been on the level in a lot of ways, both to himself and to Nick Cage.
So do we think that's a botched suicide attempt?
Yes.
Lands her there? Is that's what our, okay. So the story's ostensibly true.
Right. But then, yeah, Robin goes to Darius and this is lovely house with inexplicable mountains. Then drove Alex insane.
Wait, let's get back to the mountains.
Darius basically just strong arms him in a great scene. Like, again, I like when Adam Arkin is kind of menacing and he's just like, I don't fucking care. Get out of my face. I'll give you 25 grand for the pig. This doesn't matter to me. Get out of here. Amir ends up showing up at the house, gives Rob a ride, and that's when we find out that Nick Cage didn't even need the pig. He could find the truffles on his own. He says the trees told him where they were, but he just loves the pig and wants the pig.
It's the trees, man.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Here's a list of things. Go get them. Go to these places and get them. Drop my name if you have any problems. This goes into perhaps my least favorite bit in the movie, even though it is sort of the emotional climax of it. Robin visits this old like coworker of his that makes salted baguettes, which sound very good. And I like that moment too, because this was clearly where his restaurant was, or one of his restaurants. And now it's a bakery because she's like, I'm a baker. I tried keeping it going, but I'm a baker. So I just turned it into a bakery, which is that whole like, do what you love or, you know, chase your passions and all that. And it was like, yeah, I'm not, it may have been cool to like keep going as a Robin Feld restaurant, but that's not what I'm about. So like, she's like the one character in this movie that has some sort of happiness because just making salted baguettes.
That's true. I don't know, that like weird lady that lives in the mausoleum seems pretty cool.
She seems pretty cool too. Yeah. Cause that's Amir is sent to a mausoleum to, this is where Laurie's ashes are, Nick Cage's wife. And also where a bunch of his old wine is. He just bequeathed it to the woman at the mausoleum.
Yeah, interesting. Whatever, it was cool.
I mean, it's interesting to see a mausoleum in Oregon that doesn't have silver spheres with knives in them. It's a little Phantasm reference.
Oh, yeah, I didn't get that, sorry.
Oh, well, you should listen to This May Hurt a Bit.
Yeah, I like good podcasts.
Anyway.
Look, I'm sorry. It's fine. Your other podcast is great, all right? Stop pouting.
They go back to Darius's house, and Rob and Amir cook and serve dinner to Darius. And it's kind of funny that like he doesn't know that they're there because someone's in your kitchen cooking. How big is your house that you don't know? Cooking makes noise and smells.
This goes back to that house being in the West Hills, which I was obsessed with for a second. But I mean, part of it is the size of the house, because there aren't houses big enough that you can have like a kitchen so distinct from your office that you wouldn't notice somebody cooking in your kitchen unless you're in like one of those giant ass mansions by Laurelhurst Park. There's like two of those monster guys,
Right.
But like they're few and far between. That's part of my thing of like, anyway.
But it
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. It happened.
Because like, Amir is starting to try to like, also wants to kind of connect with his father, because we've learned that there's definitely some tension there. But this ends up being Ratatouille. And I was really bummed by that, because like they get him to come eat dinner, and then it turns out it's the same meal. We find out in the earlier breakfast scene, Amir talks about that, like, he remembers this one meal he had with his parents where they were just blown away by the food. And it was like the one time they weren't fighting and everyone was happy, and they kept talking about it. And it was at one of Robin's restaurants. Robin remembers every dish he cooked and who he cooked for. So he made the same meal.
That was stupid when Mr. Ollivander, the fucking wand maker in Harry Potter, said that. I remember every pond I've ever sold. Dude, no, you don't remember every meal at every. God, shut the fuck. I don't know why, but that infuriated me. It was really annoying.
It just made me mad because it's the same emotional beat as Ratatouille, where it's like, oh, I eat this thing and I remember, obviously that there's literary
Proust
history of that, with the Madeleines, whatever. But it's still just like, this is fucking Ratatouille. But yeah, it causes Darius to break down a little bit, and he gets sad, and then ends up he like leaves the table. Nicolas Cage follows him, and he tells him like, your pig's dead. Those tweakers fucked him up. There's nothing we could do. He's gone. And Nicolas Cage just collapses and is sad and is kind of left to just, he leaves. He goes, they go back to the diner, and this is a very telling moment because Rob says basically like, if I didn't come do this, the pig would still be alive in my head, and that would be good enough, which is basically how he's been living. Is that like, if I don't address this shit, it's fine. I can go on. But Amir, like, he's like, I'm just going to walk home from here. I don't need a ride. I'm going to walk home. And he goes back to his cabin, puts on the tape that says For Robin. And it's a recording of Laurie singing Bruce Springsteen's I'm on Fire. And it's great because I'm a little, well, I'll get to the song in a moment, but it's great because like, it's not just like in those movies where people have flashbacks about their dead wives, how it's always like perfect. Because she's like, she's like recording a message to us like, well, it's your birthday and we're going to go out. We're going to go somewhere to eat, and you're going to hate the food and get mad at it. And I'm going to have to get drunk to deal with that. But it's kind of said in a loving way, but still it's like, there's like signs that not every, it's not a perfect relationship.
Yeah, it's not flashing back to them laughing over salad and eating ice cream cones.
Or hiding under the covers. That's a common thing. But, and then, she sings this Bruce Springsteen's I'm on Fire, and it's a lovely cover, but fucking advertising has ruined this kind of shit for me. Because when I hear like a soft, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of raspy voiced woman singing, I think it's going to be a trailer for some shitty movie.
Gotcha.
Or it's like, it's trying to sell me insurance or something like that. And it's no fault. The actress that sings it does a great job, and the singer that sings it does fine, but it's more just that my brain is ruined by advertising. So some of the emotional impact of that was a little bit lost on me.
Yeah. And I thought the song choice was weird, given that we were shown earlier that she was cremated.
Yes, that's true.
Because depending on when he was listening to that could be really accurate.
Just by the way, just FYI, I'm burning.
Yeah. What happens if you listen to the tape later and the song lyrics is like, whoa, whoa, I'm dust in a jar.
That's not actually my ashes. But, and then it ends. And this was kind of unexpected. Like this, largely I'm left with at the end of this, that nothing has changed.
I think Amir got a little
there's been
pep in his step.
Yeah, because Amir, like, and he's in the car, like listening to we see a scene of him like listening to the how to appreciate classical music thing, and he turns it off. But I think like, other than like some personal growth, I don't think Amir's relationship with his father is necessarily any better after this. I don't think, like Nicolas Cage has learned to confront his grief, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's processed. He's just moving through it. You know what I mean? Like, he could spend the next 6 months just listening to that song and become trapped in that. I don't know. But it is that he's acknowledging it. So it's just these small human growths. It's not like, turns out he's back and he's going to take the restaurant thing by storm. No, he goes back to his cabin. Darius is still going to be an asshole and run his stupid business. Does that involve a son? I don't know. They don't really put a button on that. And I like how it doesn't come down one way or the other, not nebulous, but
it leaves it up to interpretation.
Sure.
I don't know what word you're going for. Sorry.
Yeah.
I would have helped you. That. I didn't have it either.
I'll take it. It leaves it up for interpretation. Ambiguous.
I like that as well. It would have annoyed me if there was even an inkling that he was going to go back into the city and start a, like, I wanted, I'm not saying that would be bad for him as a character. Just this movie ends with him in a very specific spot, maybe starting to get ready to process his grief finally in a real way. Cool. Don't have him start cooking weird shit. Don't have him invite friends over just
So you know what? I'm going to be okay. He might be, but he's taken some steps. Like, that's all that matters, is that like he's starting this journey, this whole other journey. And I like that a lot. I like how it's emotionally resonant in that it's not like emotionally huge. I thought like that it's not just this big, there's not a big catharsis in the way that you might expect. I think, when learning that the pig is dead, obviously is a huge moment for him, but it just leads to more work to be done on Robin Feld.
The other thing I was glad for too is the pig's dead, yada yada. There's another version of this movie where he gets like a puppy at the end or something. And that would have fucking driven me up a tree.
Yeah. I'm going to name it Lori. Yeah, or something like that.
Okay, no, that would have made me laugh a lot, though. if this movie just decided, like, oh no, I'm not being good and subtle anymore. I don't know how to land any kind of emotional tone. I'm gonna have a puppy named Lori to end it.
Or if it, like, if Darius has this meal and freaks out, he's like, I had to do it, man. I was under strict orders, and like there's an armchair in the room, and it spins around, and the pig is sitting in there, and it's like, this is all according to plan.
Yeah,
I've just been using you, Robin.
As far as overall, I enjoyed the shit out of this. What a delightful small little movie. It is the perfect length. It's something I complain about often, that like movies for some reason need to be 20 minutes too long. There's very little fat left on the boat. Like it's just, it made the movie it needed to make. It said the things it needed to say. There was some stuff that I think there probably was a longer original cut that they trimmed down. So there's some weird, awkward things, but like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's nice that movies like this are still being made, and then like in wide release. I think it's like it's harder to find these quiet little movies, but I'm glad they're still out there.
So recommendations, John, have you seen anything you want to recommend?
Based on your recommendations, I'm starting to get Andor pilled. I'm just a few episodes into that, but I've been enjoying that immensely. Something that it borrows heavily from that I would highly recommend is Battle of Algiers, a 1957 movie directed by Gilo Pontecorvo, and it's about similar kind of thing, like revolutionary things happening in Algiers, and it's really, really good, and I highly recommend it. It's also it made the Sight and Sound. I don't know if you heard about this, Sight and Sound top 100 best movies of all time or whatever. They send out, it's like a magazine. They send out polls to all these famous filmmakers, and usually it's like Citizen Kane or Vertigo. But there was a big upset this year because it was Jeanne Dielman, which if you'd like to hear me butcher the entire name of that movie, you can join the Patreon and listen to, I bring that up in one of the Halloween ones I did this year. But there's a big brouhaha about that. And then people are mad at the filmmaker Ty West because they released like his pick for the top 10 movies, and they're all like Citizen Kane and Vertigo. And it's like, I don't know what the problem is, but people are like, oh, you just picked like basic shit. It's like, yeah, it's still good.
Yeah, people get annoyed by that for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I'm not the biggest Ty West fan, but like, that's not a reason to be mad at him. That's dumb.
Yeah, because I mean, Vertigo's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's a really good movie.
I should see it again. I've never been a huge Vertigo guy. Like, it's one of those like I understand it. I understand its place in the pantheon or whatever, but just as a movie, it never really did anything for me. But I've not seen it on the big screen, and I think that might make a huge difference. But anyway, yeah. So it's Battle of Algiers, movie about rebels during the French occupation of Algeria. It's good stuff. Check it out. And check out Andor. Like I said, I've been enjoying it. And I'm so tired of Star Wars stuff. But man, this is drawing me back in.
Andor's good.
We'll probably do a whole thing about it.
It's good. Let me recommend two things to y'all. One, I've been watching the show that people told me to watch last year, Yellow Jackets, and it's really well done. It's super good. It's a story of a soccer team in the 90s, women's soccer team that is in a plane crash, and it gets kind of Lord of the Flies-y, creepy, weird elements to it as well, but it goes back and forth. It cuts to the current day, them in their adult versions, so played by Christina Ricci is one of them, Juliette Lewis, and two actresses, I knew their face, but I don't remember their names. But like nowhere near the name recognition of those two. But yeah, really, really solid show. Like just down the whole season very quickly. But when that last episode ended, Amazon Prime recommended I start watching the Let the Right One In TV show, which I had no fucking idea existed.
I had no idea either.
Yeah, which I loved that movie, the original one. I haven't seen the remake. And the show it's nowhere near as good as the movie. It's actually a pretty good vampire show. Like it's doing a good job of it. They changed some of the source stuff quite a bit. It's set in the modern day, but yeah, it's pretty well done. Eric Stoltz, who's the guy from Carnival? He was in like Terminator 3-ish. Stahl? Nick Stahl.
Nick Stahl.
Yeah, Nick Stahl's in it, and which is good because he fell in some hard times, so it's good to see him have a role again. Yeah, it's actually pretty good, which was very unexpected because I didn't even know it fucking existed.
So yeah, and I've heard that there's an Interview with a Vampire TV show that I've heard is supposed to be pretty good.
Interview with the Vampire TV show is very good. Yeah, I recommend that wholeheartedly. I kind of thought I already said that on the show, which is why I didn't bring it up. But yeah, really great. They go full gay, and it's great. Instead of like kind of floofing around with it, it's Louis and Lestat again, but this time Louis is a black guy in like 1920-ish New Orleans, and he's gay. So it's kind of both being out as a vampire, being out as a gay man, and
sure,
it just adds a lot to it, and yeah, it's really well done.
I will have to check those out. I had no idea about that. Let the Right One In.
Yep, didn't know existed. Yeah, it was really weird because I really liked that first movie, so I was surprised I didn't hear about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, good times. So those are my recommendations. John, what would you like to watch for our next episode of John and Alex Hate Stuff, the podcast brought to you by John and Alex Hate Stuff Networks, LLC?
Well, we just watched a movie about some deeply broken people that's struggling with a lot of stuff, and I'm it's a little heavy. I'd like to watch something nice.
Like a Jerry Lewis thing?
Yeah, he's not very nice. I mean, I suppose his telephone work was nice, but
a nice lady,
and just maybe not just one guy, like a few guys that are nice.
Oh, okay. Well, what kind of movie featuring nice guys would you like to watch?
I don't know, maybe something with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe.
Oh, you mean like the movie The Nice Guys?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, because Shane Black made a movie called The Nice Guys.
Oh, well, that could very well be what I'm looking for.
Yeah, this worked out really well. All right, so we're going to watch that.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so Shane Black's The Nice Guys for next time. Do that. Remember to follow us on all sorts of social medias. We're Jaws Pod, right? Yeah, Jaws Pod on Twitter.
Sure.
And we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Alex Bolan. There's a link on johnalexhatestuff.com because my name's weird to spell. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Goodbye.